Hello everybody, this is Felicia Brina of feliciasworld.com, and today I'm going to talk about how you pick colors for a scrappy two-tone quilt. I am not going to show my face on the camera today because I just came from the gym and then I have my self-defense class in a few hours, and so I won't entertain you with my sweaty post-gym look. So to get started, last year I released two log cabin templates, a 4-inch block and a 7-inch block that you can see here. And as I've been teaching these projects in the last few months, I get a lot of questions concerning color. And the technique itself is very easy to learn, but it seems that a lot of people really want to create kind of colorful quilts, but that they feel unsure about the fabrics that they want to choose for their project. So I thought today I'm going to start a new log cabin-ish project. I'm going to develop a new template, so I won't share with you exactly what I'm doing with these colors yet, but it will be pretty similar to the two that are already in print. So I wanted to kind of walk you through how I am going to be selecting colors, and hopefully you'll get some tips and hints and want to play with your own stash. So first of all, when I decided to do this new project, I also wanted to work entirely from my stash. So there's no fabric that's been specially bought for this project. And what came to mind, first of all, was that I wanted to make a pink quilt with some either a white or a black contrast to it. And I've been playing back and forth with this black or white, and I've decided on white just because it's a little bit lighter. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through some of the fabrics that I selected, and then I want to walk you through some of the fabrics that didn't make it into the pink cut, because I think we learn just as much about what we're not doing or what we select out as what we select in. So even in a scrappy quilt, and this is certainly going to be a scrappy quilt, it's still a deliberate decision which fabrics goes into your quilt and which fabrics don't. So here's a couple of stashes of yeses. These are goes. And when I said I wanted to make a pink and white quilt, I don't want it to look like every 3-year-old's dream necessarily. I want it to be, a little bit grown up. It will, of course, be very feminine and it will be pink, but there's still a limit to the pink. And so I'm starting out with a little sort of core selection here of pinks, and I want to make sure that I'm using a variety of different shades of pink, but I still want to discipline my stash a little bit so that it doesn't have too many gray pinks and not too many yellowy or peachy pinks. This fabric right here is I call it Bep to Best Mold Pink. It's an art gallery, Katerina Rochella print from a couple of years ago that I just love and that I've rebought a couple of times. And I have a couple of her fabrics from that collection in the pile here. So that's going to be my starting point. And I'm going to include this Michael Miller Glitz fabric here. So these are both very pink if you want, but the Michael Miller one's a little bit warmer. And then I'm also going to include this fabric here from Anna Marie Horner. And I think it's important when you're playing in scrappy quilts that you are brave enough to include colors that aren't just pink. So in this fabric, of course, we have some yellows and reds and turquoises and stuff that are going to stand out. I'm also going to add, let's see here what might look good next, some, I believe this is cotton and steel. And you can see here now that we have some warmer, almost more yellowy pinks and some more bluish purplish pinks, and that's okay. As we start adding more fabrics to this mix, I think things will come together a little bit nicer. Here's a tulip pink that again falls a little bit on that more peachy spectrum. I'm gonna add this one. And then one thing that I love to add to almost anything I do, especially when it's going to look scrappy, is I like to add Liberty. So Liberty fabrics are, as we know, not entirely inexpensive. but they just add that sort of glamorous cottage, if you have such a thing as a glamorous cottage look, to almost every project that you put in there. I'm going to use some more of this cotton and steel, and mind you, this is also for a log cabin project, so you're not going to see big surfaces of any of these fabrics. It's all going to be pretty scrappy. This is a Japanese fabric that I've had laying for a long time, and although it is very light, I want to include a little bit of it to give all that pink saturatedness a little bit of a break. Plus I think the little animals and trees and stuff in this is just absolutely adorable. And let's see here. I do like to put a little bit of checks and polka dots and stripes. You can't go wrong. Into this project, here's another beautiful bright pink of unknown origin. I have some leftover backing sateen from Anna Marie Horner that's going to go in there. And then I'm going to put this one in here. This is not a pink fabric. This is a gray fabric, but I think that little bit of hot pink is just going to add some really nice richness to this, this collection here. I'm going to go back and add, there's another cotton and steel fabric we're going to put in here. And then, again, to sort of play around the concept of pink, I'm going to put this fabric in here, at least in some quantity. I'm not sure how much yet. It's actually red with pink on it. But I think that, again, if you want to play with pink and you want it to read interesting and not just pink, you want to kind of add some sort of questionable characters into the mix to add some interest to the whole thing. Another cotton and steel. And then I'm going to add some more sweet little Liberty fabrics into this. Again, one of the cool things about the Liberty fabrics is that they have, really fine quality print. And so they just tend to just add this sort of glorious level of detail. There's another red and pink one, another cotton and steel. And also notice that I'm mixing what you might consider fabric categories. I have a batik in here, I have some sateen in here, I have Liberty fabrics, I have some little kitty novelty prints mixed with cotton and steel, which is, very contemporary and modern. And I like that. I don't like for my projects to really look like they belong in one category. I'm going to put another of these Katarina Rochelle Pepto-Bismol pink fabrics in here. And then I have a few more Liberty fabrics that I'm going to add into the mix there. And keep in mind again that all you're going to see in the project is are very small cuts, narrow cuts of fabric. So big prints and so forth are not going to show up. So when I start sewing, and after I've made about maybe 8 or 10 blocks, I will probably step back and I will try to reassess what I'm doing. This is a maybe. I might use a little bit of this one. To reassess whether what I had in mind is actually working. If I find that it's too dull, then I will add a little bit more of the brighter fabrics. Maybe add a new fabric that's a little bit brighter. And if I find that the whole thing, looks too childlike, then I might actually go back and add some more grown-up fabrics. And so the starting point here is one thing, but when you're working with a scrappy quilt, you should also feel free to sort of change things as you go. This is another cotton and steel, and I like that really strong pink that they're using here. So I'm going to certainly use that, and you'll probably just get little bits and pieces of the faces. I'm probably also going to use this bug, another cotton and steel. I'm going to move this over a little bit. And then I think my ultra attention grabbing pink for this project is going to be this beautiful pink fabric from Sleeping Porch, Heather Ross, that just came out a few months ago. And I think once we are all is said and done now, I think we're up to maybe about 50 different fabrics by the time I've added everything in. So here is also the thing with making these scrappy quilts. Here's a fabric that I've been hoarding, and I've decided to not hoard it anymore. And see if you can see what this is. This is my super duper special imported from Tokyo Liberty Hello Kitty fabric. And I have this in a few different colors, and I just adore it. I am going to sacrifice a few strips of this for this quilt. I think that will just add this super cute detail to the project. So those are the fabrics that are, at this point, going to be in my quilt. I'm thinking about adding little bits and pieces of this one. Again, you're just going to see very narrow strips of it, so that's a maybe. I'll hold that off and not cut it right away. I have a few in this series that I may add into the mixer just to get some kind of fun whimsicality into the quilt. But what I also want to show you is I want to show you what didn't make it into the mix. I audited this fabric earlier, and although I think it's really beautiful, it just isn't adding anything except noise to the colors that are already in there in my mind. So I'm holding that one off for now. It's still in the maybe pile, but it's probably not going to make it. Here is another one. I think this is a beautiful fabric. It's another cotton and steel, but it just is a little bit too gray, so I'm holding that one out. And when I say too gray, it's too gray compared to what I had in mind when I envisioned my pink quilt. So when you're doing this at home, you want to think about what you have in mind and what you're trying to create in terms of the overall mood of the pink. And I wanted mine to be pretty bright, and so you know, have a variety of pinks, but still, you know, I haven't gone completely all over the pink spectrum. I'm still disciplining it a little bit. This one too is, it might be hard for you to see, but it's just reading a little bit too peachy for this project. I'm going to take that one out for now. This is a Michael Miller, and I like it. It's a houndstooth pattern, but it's too cold. This one might make it in there, although the background here is like a really light peach, and that's mostly what would be in a narrow strip of fabric, so it's in the maybe pile. This one, I think in this case, I actually really like the Anna Maria Horner fabric, but it's just a little bit too much brown in it for this particular project. When I first started collecting fabrics, I thought this was an absolute certainty. But as I started collecting my other pinks, I actually find that it has too much white background space. I don't care for that much white in this quilt. This one has the same problem. Maybe a different project that has an overall lighter field. Here's a couple of other no-goes. These are just simply too peachy, and you can see how they just don't add anything to that rich pink world that I'm creating here. So you can see that, you know, out of my stash, which probably involves, you know, a few hundred pinks, there is still a lot of fabrics that just simply didn't make it. That there's nothing wrong with them, and they might be perfect for a different pink project. But for this quilt, I wanted a brighter overall impression. So that's the pinks. So I've decided to put the pinks against a white background. And I could, of course, go the easy route and just pick a solid pink fabric like this. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. I did that in the yellow and white log cabin quilt. But for this particular project, I'm actually really attracted to the idea of playing around the concept of white a little bit more. So I'm going to use quite a bit of this solid, but I'm going to intersperse it with other low volume but cool low volume prints. So I'm not going to put any sort of beigey whites or yellowy whites in here. I really, if it's going to be anything, it's going to be like a cool gray, so that the overall quilt probably is going to read pretty cold. It might be hard for you to see the pattern here, but this is a fat quarter that I have of dough from Caroline Friedlander. Here's a little bit of a cotton and steel. No, it's not cotton and steel, sorry, it's art gallery. An art gallery print that I think might work really well. And I'm probably going to primarily use the whites. Here's a white ish fabric of unknown origin. Well, it says right on there, basic gray for Moda. And here's another white on white print. It's a little bit more yellow, but I think it's going to slip through just fine. I'm going to use this Allison glass here. Here's another Carolyn Freelander. And another one. And so I'm not going to use these printed fabrics a whole lot. I'm just going to intersperse them a little bit. And then to wake everybody up once in a while, I'm also going to use some precious pieces of this little Liberty fabric that I have right here. So although I want the overall quilt to read yellow and pink, when you start looking at the details, I want people to still be able to find that there are some non-white fabrics in this mixture. I'm going to take the camera off here for just a second. See if I can get it out without giving you seasickness. And come in here so you can kind of see in a little bit more detail the fabrics that I've chosen to work with here. Okay, so I think that an overwhelming majority of the white fabric being the actual whites, and these just being sort of little teasers in between, I think that will give a really nice effect. And I think that this not white will be a very nice contrast to this rather delicious, rich collection of pinks that is going to make out the other half of my log cabin quilt. So that's all I wanted to share with you for today. I hope that was useful, and I hope you are inspired to go home and play in your own stash at home. And good luck. I'm Felicia with FeliciaSwirled.com. Thank you.